Things are looking pretty bright after a Haaland triple captain haul in game week 2. However, I have Isak, Eze and an injured Solanke to think about in my team. So here is my game week 3 team selection. Alright, I'll start off the team selection video then by just having a little review of my team and how it got on in game week 2. So a 1-pointer for Dean Henderson. Hasn't yet kept a clean sheet. Hasn't even gotten saves bonus yet. Must say, he's been pretty disappointing to start with. But can't really justify using a transfer on a goalkeeper at this stage. So I think he's just going to have to stay in my team. Robinson with a nice assist and some bonus points. Hall benched, unfortunately, in the game against Bournemouth. But he did look good when he came on. I have a feeling that he will still cement himself as that first choice Newcastle centre-back. Left back. It's just a matter of time before that happens. Guardiola 2.0 unfortunately conceded against Ipswich. He's also, while Rico Lewis is in the team at least, not looking attacking at all. Little bit worried about Guardiola, but again, I don't think I can justify getting rid of him at this stage. And then Levi Colwill, my transfer in, 6-2 was the score against Wolves, so he conceded a couple of goals. Unfortunately, only getting a 1-pointer. Anthony Gordon with a goal against Bournemouth. Really pleased with that. You know, I was, after game week 1, to be honest, I was kind of losing hope in him already. But I'm really glad that he came away there with a goal. I don't think I'm going to be selling him anytime soon. Eze, my God, he's been so unlucky in these opening couple of game weeks. He's had, I believe, the most shots of any player in the Premier League. Had a really good game in the Cup yesterday. Only got 2 points in game week 2. But he's hit the woodwork twice. Had the most shots in the Premier League. On penalties, free kicks, likely playing 90 every game. I just think he ticks all the boxes of a good FPL asset. Question mark though, you know, no goals, no assists in 2 games. Could I be selling him? Salah with his just standard goal for him. Smith Rowe also with a goal. Really pleased with that. Well, I would say the 2 players I was considering for that position at the start of the season were him and Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa. And Smith Rowe so far is outdoing Rogers in terms of points. Isak, another blank. We'll talk about him. And then Erling Haaland, I triple captained him, did it live on my deadline stream, and he came away with 51 points. And I've got to be honest, if it wasn't for that Haaland triple captain, I'd have had a pretty terrible game week. So 97 points in total, and I'm 245k overall. So then, looking ahead to game week 3, and ultimately, I don't think, like I said, I can really justify making any changes to my defence. I just have bigger fires to put out, basically, as you saw on my team then. So Henderson, Guardiola, Hall, Colwill, Robinson, probably all going to start for me. I'm really hoping that Lewis Hall starts against Tottenham at St James's Park. Do I think Newcastle will keep a clean sheet in that game? Probably not, but I do think there'll be a fair few goals in that one, and hopefully he can get me some attacking returns. I do like the thought of going for Rico Lewis. I think at least for the next couple of games, he's going to be a really good option. But then, you know, he is a bit of a minutes risk beyond that, I would say. Probably does start the next couple just based on his performances. But obviously, they've got club captain Kyle Walker waiting in the wing. And they've got Arsenal at home in what's that, game week 5. So there's only a couple more weeks before a really tough fixture. And of course, he may become a minutes doubt. So don't think I can quite justify bringing him in. Aston Villa also have a really good fixture run. There is temptation to bring in some Villa defenders as well. But again, I just think I have other fires to put out in my team. And with one free transfer, I think ultimately I'm just going to have to get through this game week. And of course, it's international break after game week 3. And making transfers, particularly bringing in international players the week before the international break is a risk. Because of course, yes, you get them for 1 week in FPL, but then they go away for 2 weeks, right? Depending on how far they could travel, they might not even make it back in time to play in game week 4. And also, they could get injured if they're away on international duty for 2 weeks, right? So making transfers before the international break carry with it a bit of risk. And I think with all those things considered and thought about, probably best I don't make a transfer to any of these players. My midfield then, Salah, Eze, Gordon and Smith Rowe. I would say my main concern in this midfield right now is Eberiche Eze. And to be honest, I've had a load of comments on my videos. I made a wildcard draft with him in it. And yeah, a few other comments on some of my videos with people doubting Eze. And I gotta say, I kind of hinted towards it when I went through the points. I still think Eze is one of the best value players in the game. He's nailed to start for Crystal Palace, plays 90 minutes every game, takes penalties and free kicks. He's taken the most shots of any player in the league so far this season, and he's hit the woodwork twice. Yes, he's not delivered yet, right? 0 goals, 0 assists from 2 starts. But it's only 2 starts. And I think FPL, sometimes patience is rewarded. Well, quite a lot of times for me at least, patience has been rewarded. You know, you pick players in your team at the start of the season for a reason because you believe they're going to get returns. And Eze, for me, was one of those players, particularly with the departure of Elise. I think it just meant that Eze was going to grow into that real talismanic role for Crystal Palace. And I think that is the case. Looking at his underlying numbers as well, particularly per 90 minutes, they're not too dissimilar from what he put up last season without actually scoring or getting an assist. So, you know, he's playing at the similar level to what he was playing last season. And I've got to say, he has passed the eye test and some. He's looked really dangerous in every game he's played and clearly looking like that Crystal Palace talisman. And the next 3 fixtures, right? Chelsea away. I know I've got Colwill in my team, but you can't tell me that Chelsea are one of the best defences in the league. They're not. So they could well, you know, Eze could well get something there. Leicester at home and then Man United at home. I'd say those are 2 fixtures that Crystal Palace could score goals in and potentially win. So I like the upcoming fixtures. He's on penalties, free kicks, plays 90 minutes, taking the most shots of any player in the league. I think you and I should be patient with Eze. So up front then, I've got Haaland, Isak, and unfortunately an injured Solanke. Now, I have a bit of a dilemma with Solanke at the moment, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. As for Haaland and Isak, I think both of them are going to stay in my team. Erling Haaland, there's absolutely no way he leaves my team, right? He's probably the best captain for game week 3 and 4, and then against Arsenal at home, I'm obviously happy to keep him for that game, and I can just easily start Mo Salah or someone else, Mo Salah or someone else in my team. Isak, though, has been, I'll admit, a little bit disappointing so far this season, and it's a slightly different story to Eze. Eze has at least put up some decent underlying numbers and looked relatively dangerous, but Isak, he's got an assist, but the underlying numbers are not looking good at this point, right? 0 goals, 1 assist from 2 starts, but only 0.19 expected returns per 90. Last season, he put up 0.96. You know, those numbers last season at an 8.5 million price tag just made him just a straight transfer in, right? It was an absolute obvious transfer in at 8.5 million, I think. I still think he's the most popular player in FPL. Question marks, though, over whether you should keep him in your team. My answer to this, though, is the same as Eze. You picked him in your team at the start of the season for a reason. He's nailed to start in that centre-forward position for Newcastle. Takes penalties as well. He's not gotten off to a strong start, but I do think the numbers that he put up last season are a big enough sample size to kind of rely on and at least think about when deciding whether to transfer him out, right? He's played 27 games and got that level of returns. You know, I think that's enough to back up that he's a good option. And he's got good upcoming fixtures as well. I spoke about the Tottenham at home game when going through Lewis Hall. I think that game could be genuinely a bit of a goal fest. And then he's got Wolves and Fulham away after that. Another couple of games where he could do well in. So for me, I'm going to stick with Isak. I'm going to believe in those numbers that he put up last season and in his abilities to do it again. So remembering I've only got 1 free transfer and I'm just looking at the rest of my team, I think if I were to use the 1 free transfer, it's best used on Solanke, right? Because he's likely out until after the international break. And after the international break, he's got Arsenal at home, who are the best defence in the league, right? They kept 2 clean sheets in 2 games already this season. And last season, they were by far and away the best defence statistically, right? So I've looked at the Fantasy Football Hub expected points for Solanke. By the way, well, replacements for Solanke. So what I've done here is filtered 7.5 million and below and the top players for expected points over the next 3 game weeks. And this is the ranking that Fantasy Football Hub has given. By the way, if you want to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, you can get 50% off in the link in the description below. So the top Solanke replacements, 6 of them: Muniz of Fulham, João Pedro of Brighton, Mateta, Wissa, Cunha, and Armstrong. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not massively excited by any of these players. Muniz of Fulham, yes, Ipswich away is a good fixture, but then it's the international break, and then he's got West Ham and Newcastle, 2 games where I wouldn't be too sure how Fulham fare. João Pedro, he's got Arsenal away in game week 3. That's probably the toughest fixture you could have as an attacking player. And then the 2 fixtures after the international break are good, but that's when Solanke's back. Mateta, he scored in the Cup for Crystal Palace yesterday. That was on Tuesday. Chelsea away, Leicester at home, Man United at home. He could be a decent option, to be fair. Wissa, 6.1 million. Southampton, Man City, Tottenham. So 2 tough fixtures after that. He's been looking good, forming a good connection with Mbumo. Cunha of Wolves has been looking bright, but I don't think Wolves themselves have been looking all that good. And yes, I think Armstrong is going to be nailed on to play every game and take penalties for Southampton, etc., etc. But I'm just not all that excited by him. And I gotta say, this might sound like a bit of a negative Nancy, but with one free transfer, I don't think I can do anything here. And I gotta say, I'm not all that massively excited by these strikers. I would rather have, I think, the best Solanke replacement is a fifth midfielder, if that makes sense. If you just go back to my team a second, I would probably replace Harry Winks for someone like Rodgers or another midfielder of that sort of caliber, and then just sell Solanke for someone, you know, significantly cheaper, like a 4.5 million striker or something, and use my 2 free transfers that way. I'm just not all that excited by these guys. If I were to pick 2 players off this list, actually no, 3 players, I would pick the top 3. I think Muniz, João Pedro and Mateta are all very decent. But yeah, that's just the question mark for me. Is it worth, you know, replacing Solanke with one of these guys and using my free transfer, or just rolling and going through with another 4-4-2 team for the week and just going with that? So here we are then. Right now, call me boring, but I think I'm going to roll my free transfer despite having an injured Solanke on my bench. So Henderson, Guardiola, Hall, Colwill, Robinson in my defence, Salah, Eze, Gordon, Smith-Rowe, and Haaland and Isak up front. This has been, I must say, it's been a really tough decision for me this week because, I mean, I could do anything from rolling, taking a hit to do, you know, bring Solanke out for a midfielder and then swapping him for another striker, or hitting my wild card, because in general there are probably 3 or 4 players in this team that I don't really want to see there long term. I'm thinking Dean Henderson, Lewis Hall, Johnson, because Ipswich have just signed, I can't remember the guy's name, Ogbene, who was playing right wing back for Luton, who could well replace Johnson there, and Solanke, who's injured. You know, there are, like I said, players in this team that I want to get rid of, could potentially use my wild card. But we're just going into the international break, and the thought of using a wild card the week before an international break just feels a bit too risky for me. And likewise, even using a transfer feels a little bit risky. So I'm boring, I know, but my thoughts right now are probably to sit on my hands. And I don't think this team is all really that bad. The only thing I'm really worried about is probably Lewis Hall and the fact that Eze and Colwill are playing one another. I'm still predicted to get 61.2 expected points in Game Week 3, which I think is a very respectable Game Week score, given I'm kind of crawling my way into the Game Week with the players that I've got. And the team, according to Fantasy Football Hub, again, link in the description, you get 50% off if you want to sign up. 89% AI rating for them for this team. So, yeah, it's looking pretty decent. Am I saying this is my final decision? No, I can't possibly say that, right? If anything happens to any other players in my team, you know, they pick up injuries in training, etc. Solanke's looking like he's potentially dropping in price, which isn't the case at the moment. I think he's going to stay there at 7.5. Then things might change. But right now, in this moment, I'm not thinking about making a transfer. I'm thinking I'm just going to roll, take kind of the hit on potential points the week before the international break. Once the international break is done, then I'll have 2 free transfers and I can kind of transform my team. So yeah, that's my thinking. But let me know in the comments if you would do anything different. All right, and that's the end of the video. I'll admit, I'm being pretty boring this week, right? I could do something really exciting, but I'm opting not to. And it doesn't make for great YouTube entertainment content, but ultimately, you know, I'm making these team selection videos so you guys can follow my thought process and journey with my team throughout the season. And one game week not necessarily looking optimal is not the end of the world, because it's before the international break. I've only got 1 free transfer. Solanke could be back afterwards. I just think there are so many, you know, variables, etc. going on at the moment where I don't really want to make a transfer right now. So that's where we are. Again, like I said, let me know in the comments if you do anything differently. If you enjoyed the video, found my thoughts and found it in general useful, please leave me a like rating. You can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.